Welcome to Born to Win. I'm Bob Proctor, and each Monday I share a message designed to help you start your week with focus, clarity, and intention. These episodes are built around timeless principles that, when understood and applied, can change the direction of your life. If this podcast has been meaningful to you, I'd really appreciate it if you would rate it, follow it, and share it with someone who could benefit from these ideas. It helps this message reach people who are ready to hear it. Every episode is designed to remind you that success isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. You were born to win, and when you live in harmony with the laws of life, you begin to experience that truth in every area. So take a deep breath, open your mind, and let's get started. For nearly 30 years, I worked alongside my father in his business. One of the questions I was asked most often was, what was it like growing up with Bob Proctor as a father? Well, that question eventually led me to write my book, My Father Knew the Secret, Growing Up with Bob Proctor. It was my way of giving people a glimpse into the environment I was raised in and the principles I was exposed to from a very young age. But another question came up just as frequently. Why isn't this material taught in schools? Why don't we teach young people how their minds work? Why don't we teach them how beliefs are formed? And why don't we teach self-image, decision-making, emotional awareness, persistence, and the laws that govern results? We teach history, mathematics, language, and other core curriculum, and of course, these are valuable, but imagine how powerful it would be if alongside those subjects, every young person also learned how to think with intention, how to build belief in themselves and direct their imagination, and how you always have a choice between reacting and responding, because those inner skills, while they shape the direction of a life. Now, I want to say something clearly. There are extraordinary educators in the world, teachers who care deeply, coaches who inspire, mentors who lift young people every single day. The foundation is there. What we are really talking about is expanding the curriculum of life, recognizing that the inner game of thinking, belief, and self-awareness is just as foundational as academic skill. And the good news is this: we do not have to wait for an institutional shift to begin teaching these ideas. These principles, they are teachable. And more importantly, they are learnable. And young people understand them quickly when they are presented clearly, because they are intuitive. They make sense. When a child understands that their thoughts influence their beliefs, and their beliefs influence their results, you give them something extraordinary. You give them agency. I want to share something personal from my life. When I was a boy, my father had a bedtime ritual with me that quietly built the foundation of how I approached the world. After tucking me in, he would sit beside me and place his hand gently on my chest. He would speak calmly and conversationally. He would ask about my day, and he would share something from his. If I had faced a challenge, he didn't dismiss it. He reframed it. He would say there's good in everything. Sometimes we just have to look a little longer. If another person was involved, he would guide me toward understanding. He taught me that people are doing the best they can with the awareness they have. He encouraged patience. He encouraged love. Then he would talk about my potential. He would say, you can do anything you truly decide to do. He would remind me that my imagination was a tool, that I could build pictures in my mind of the results I wanted, whether it was improving in sports, forming a friendship, or earning a strong mark in school. Sometimes he would gently guide me to imagine the kind of person I wanted to become, not dramatically or with pressure, just naturally, as if it were the most normal thing in the world to think about your future with intention. Before leaving the room, he would place his hand on my chest again and say, Brian, you will have a great sleep, and tomorrow you'll wake up with a big smile on your face, and you're going to have a wonderful day. And I did. When he walked out, I felt safe, I felt capable, and most of all, I felt deeply loved. That ritual was education. He was providing a conditioning that was loving and would serve me throughout my life. It wasn't formal or complicated, but it was transformational. He was building my self-image. He was helping me form beliefs about what was possible for me before the world ever had a chance to tell me otherwise. That is powerful. Every child is forming beliefs, not necessarily in a negative sense, but rather in a very natural psychological sense. Repetition shapes belief. Emotion strengthens belief, and environment reinforces belief. A child who consistently hears you are capable begins to believe it. That belief translates into confidence, and confidence influences action, which produces results, and results always reinforce the belief. It becomes a cycle because beliefs are learned. They can also be upgraded. When a young person understands that beliefs are not fixed facts, but interpretations that can be examined and reshaped, everything opens up. They begin to ask better questions. Is that really true? Is there another way to look at this? What can I learn here? That shift toward critical thinking moves someone from passive acceptance to active creation. That is self-leadership. If I could design one course for every school in the world, it would be a course in awareness. Awareness of thoughts, awareness of emotional reactions, awareness of habits, awareness of environment. Because awareness is the starting point of growth and change. You cannot adjust what you are not aware of. When a young person learns to observe their thinking, they begin to recognize patterns. They notice how a thought leads to a feeling and how that feeling influences their behavior. With that awareness comes choice. Instead of reacting automatically, they learn to pause and evaluate. They can choose to respond when they understand what that means. That is the beginning of mature confidence. And it's the beginning of leadership. Another powerful concept to teach early is responsibility. Responsibility is not blame. Blame looks backward. Responsibility, it looks forward. Instead of asking who caused this, responsibility asks, what can I do next? When a young person understands that their attitude, effort, and decisions influence outcomes, they feel empowered. They begin to see that they are participants in their life, not spectators. My father taught what he called the laws of life. Cause and effect, the law of vibration, the law of compensation. These are not abstract ideas, they are observable principles. Every action produces a result. Every repeated thought strengthens a belief. Every skill developed increases value. If a child understands that results are not random, they stop feeling confused by life and start becoming curious about it. What caused this? What could I adjust? Where can I improve? Curiosity leads to growth. Decision, discipline, and resilience are powerful skills that anyone can learn. A true decision is a commitment, a line in the sand, a declaration. Once a real decision is made, focus sharpens, energy aligns, and action follows. And small actions, they compound. From there, discipline develops, and discipline builds resilience. Life will present challenges. That's part of growth. But when a person understands that setbacks are feedback, they adjust rather than retreat. Over time, that mindset builds durable confidence, the kind that is not dependent on constant praise, but grounded in understanding in the ebb and flow of life. We can all play a role in creating a positive influence. You do not need a formal classroom to teach these ideas. You need intention. A conversation around the dinner table. A reframed moment after a mistake. A question like, what did you learn from that? Those moments, they shape identity. Just as my father did with me, the most powerful lessons are often delivered quietly and consistently. And when that internal voice begins to say, you are capable, adjust and continue, instead of you are not enough, the long-term impact, it's immeasurable. So what can we do now? First, we can deepen our own understanding. You cannot teach what you do not embody. Second, we can model what self-leadership looks like. Young people, they absorb what they see. And third, we can share these principles naturally, consistently, with sincerity, and always with love in our hearts. Because education should prepare a person for life, not just a career. Life requires emotional intelligence, self-awareness, resilience, belief. These are skills that can be developed. And when they are, something remarkable happens. A person stops measuring their future by their past. They begin to see that their capacity to grow, adapt, and create is far greater than they once understood. And that realization can change everything for a child. So let's get into your Born to Win practice for this week. My challenge for you is to have one meaningful conversation with a young person in your life. And listen to understand. This means giving your full, calm attention. Ask good questions that encourage going deeper. Help them to see the possibility in their story. Let the conversation come to a natural close rather than ending it. Spend a few minutes each night visualizing yourself as a positive influence. See it clearly and feel it emotionally. Then intentionally be that person for someone else. The most powerful education in the world is understanding who you are. When someone learns to think with intention, question inherited ideas, and consciously choose beliefs that support the expansion of who they are, while they gain something no circumstance can take away. That kind of education can begin at any age. We were not born to drift through life. We were born for growth, for contribution. We were born to win. Thank you for joining me today on Born to Win. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who could use a reminder of their own inner greatness. It also helps me to reach more people if you rate and follow this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Brian Proctor Official. And remember, success isn't about luck or timing. It's about alignment. You were designed for success, built for expansion, and born to win. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, think big, trust yourself, and keep growing.